Question 12. What does the first half of this Maimed explain, and what is its direction? The answer is, it explains Shalom, and the direction is a higher and higher and a more and more perfect peace. In other words, he's going to speak about different levels of peace, and the highest peace is going to be the latest and the last. So the Rebbe is going away from peace with conflict to peace with peace until the ultimate peace, which is going to be after Moshiach comes. That's the direction, that's the trajectory of the Maimed. Okay? But that's only the first 4 pages. The second 4 pages, the Rebbe goes exactly the opposite. Question 13. How is the second half of the Maimed saying something quite different and going in the opposite direction? After the Rebbe pushes Shalom as high as possible, making it very theoretical, real peace is not going to exist. Even Shlomo HaMelech wasn't real peace. You're not going to have real peace till after Mashiach comes, and even after Mashiach comes, after the second Tkufa, real peace, which means that there's no enemy at all. The enemy is completely defeated, as I explained to you in the classes of last week, is not going to happen till Mashiach comes and so on. But the Rebbe flips it the other way. That no matter how big a conflict, beruchnius, there's peace there too. He does an about face. The second half of the Maimed is the exact opposite of the first half of the Maimed. And in the second half of the Maimed, the Rebbe is arguing that even in environments where there's real milchama, there's still bepnimius shalom. So the first half of the Maimed is going up. The second half of the Maimed is coming down. That's why I call them opposite directions. The first half of the Maimed is saying that most peace is not good enough. There's a higher level, and the lower level is not good enough. The second half of the Maimed is exactly the opposite. That even in places where there's milchama, bepnimius, there's also shalom. That's what's going to happen. Now, if you're going to ask me how is the Rebbe going to explain it, I'm going to say, stick around. We're going to learn it. IYH, Im Yirtzeh Hashem. Okay? Questions or comments?
Will you repeat number 13?
Yes. The second half of the Maimed, the Rebbe is going to argue that even the most combative milchomas, beruchnius, which are not won peacefully, bepnimius, there's shalom there also. And he's going to bring it down. The worst scenarios, the most incomplete shalom is also shalom. Question 14. Explain each word of the pasuk. Pada v'shalom nafshi mikravli ki b'rab ha'yimadi. Okay, number 1, pada, he redeemed. B'shalom, what does b'shalom mean? That when the war was over, there was no more war. Shalom doesn't mean we stopped fighting. Shalom means that the fighting ended in a decisive way. You're never going to fight again. That's what shalom means, that the enemy's gone. Nafshi means my soul. Mikravli means from hand to hand combat. The worst kind of fighting, what psychologists says, the kind of war which causes the most trauma and PTSD is up close and personal. People say that if you want to be normal after you fight in the army, be a pilot. Because pilots kill a lot of people from 10,000 feet. You understand that if you want to suffer trauma, you can be in a trench and fight face to face, hand to hand with a sword. And it's about killing. War is so bad. It's beyond our fathoming. Mikravli means upfront and personal. You're fighting with your enemy hand to hand. And David HaMelech says, even though it's mikravli, still it's pada b'shalom. In other words, the worst kind of war, and yet he calls it pada b'shalom, which is the big question. How could you have such an intense war, and yet when you win, you call it pada b'shalom? The reason David HaMelech fights a war that's so up close and personal, and identifies his victory as pada b'shalom, as a rabbim, hayu imadi, that many were with me. He has the power of the rabbim that help him achieve not just pada, but pada b'shalom, redeeming in peace. What is the meaning of ki berabim hayu imadi? That's the next question, 15. You ready? What are the 2 interpretations of ki berabim hayu imadi that I gave you? Number 1, that David was a man. Number 1 was Yachid Sherabim Tzrichim Loi. David was one person. But because he was a king and he represented the whole cloud, he has the power of the community. Yachid, an individual, Sherabim Tzrichim Loi, that many need him, has the Koyach HaRabim. That's the Poshet Taich in Kibrab Mayimadi. Number 2, what's brought in Chazal, And the Maimorim, Anshe Avshalom Hispalalu L'Shleima Shal David. David's arch enemy, which is his own son Avshalom. His soldiers, David, that David should stay alive. David shouldn't get hurt. How do you fight with your enemy and you pray that the enemy's king shouldn't get hurt? It takes away your whole sail, your whole power. David got into the heads of the soldiers of Avshalom's army that they should daven for him, and it undermined them, and that's why the victory was an eif in the Pad of Avshalom. Now, does anybody remember how did David do this? Very good. David sat in his house. He was 67 years old, exhausted from fighting a life of war. And he said Tilim, and David HaMelech's Tilim got into the heads of his enemies, and they davened for his safety.
What do you mean got into their heads? It was through the Cairo?
Yeah. Yeah. Push it. So there's two taichin that I gave you. There's more taichin of Kiberabim HaYimadi, number one. Yochid Sherabim Tzrichim Lei. He has the power of the many because they need him. And number two, that the enemy was also with David HaMelech, which is obviously more than number one. Questions or comments? Oh, go ahead.
You're talking about, think that someone could control someone else's thoughts.
Well, it's a pnimi. Controlling somebody else's thoughts, tzaddikim can control. David HaMelech said Tilim. And the thoughts got controlled, so to speak, by themselves. Now, 16. How does he explain the word shalom? 3 lines into the Maimon. Shahamenaged misbatel legamri. Not you won, there's no enemy. Now, there's only one way to have no enemy, to kill them all, or to turn them around. Shalom is not I won. Shalom, I won, and I'm never going to have to fight again. That's shalom. L'moshel in Eretz Yisrael, if there is a Rahman al-Islam, a ceasefire in this war, there's going to be another war years down the road. If Eretz Yisrael finally, and they blame it on the world, it has nothing to do with the world. If Eretz Yisrael, if this guy Bibi, thank you, will do what he said, he's going to finish this war. You'll never have to fight with them again, never. And they'll be better off. They'll be better off. That's the Taich Pada B'Shalom. Ceasefire means respect. You want them to also feel like people. If you allow them to feel like people, you are telling them tomorrow you can fight again.
Wait, isn't the whole thing you said last week about building them up, like Americans?
After. First, what did FDR say to Eisenhower? Defeat them bad. There should be no thought. There's no ceasefire. Unconditional surrender. They lost. No negotiations. Then you can be nice. Then you can be very nice. And that's the right thing to do. But first you have to let them curse the day. I saw an interview with a Japanese man who was on the I think it was called the Missouri, the USS Missouri, where they took the surrender from the Japanese. The Japanese came onto the ship to sign the surrender document after the Second World War. And this Japanese man was standing there. And he's looking at the United States fleet. And he asks himself, how did we ever think we could fight with them? That's the question you ask yourself. As they're signing the surrender documents, where did we get so crazy that we thought we could fight with these people? That's Pada B'Shalom. Then you can be as nice as you want. But it has to happen in that order. You can't be nice and hope they'll learn the lesson. They never do. Certainly not the Arabs. They don't.
You think we should be nice to them?
We must be nice to them. They're God's creations.
About giving in to them.
That's not being nice. That's being mean to yourself. Giving in is the whole problem. Every time you give in, you're saying to them, we're still afraid of you. And they have to know that fighting with the Jews is a bad idea, and they're never allowed to forget it. Then you can be as nice as you want. But that lesson has to come first. Okay, now, what does he use as an example? What does the Rebbe use as an example? Anybody? Shlomo HaMelech. So one of the girls asked me right away correctly, so then how can we speak about David and Avshalom? It's a gavaldik kasha. And the only teretz that I can give you, and I think it's a good teretz, is that there was the last war of David's life. He was fixed. The last war of his life, mamish, the very end of his life, he achieved. You'll see this in the next Maimorim, which are hemshech to this one, the beginnings of Pada B'Shalom. Shlomo HaMelech had so much charisma, so much power, that he won over the whole world without firing a shot. just with his personality. Shlomo is a mashal for Pada B'Shalom, and as I mentioned to you the other day, that's why Dafka Shlomo was able to build the Beis HaMikdash, because the Beis HaMikdash cannot be built as a monument to Jewish power. It has to be built as a monument to Jewish peace. So David couldn't build it, because David builds the Beis HaMikdash, it's going to be seen as a monument to war. Question 18. Why is he a good example? And the answer is because in his times, the whole world made friends with Shlomo HaMelech without even having to fire a shot. People did not, they wanted to be Shlomo's friend because of the power of Shlomo HaMelech.
And the power came from his father.
Well, the power came from Shlomo. But Shlomo had this power because he followed David. Shlomo was not an Abi Vernik. Shlomo was a Gadol Shlomo. Shlomo was a giant. But Shlomo inherited a powerful kingdom, and he enriched it, and he made it beautiful. He added his wisdom to it, and people were drawn to that. They wanted to be his friend. Okay. So question 18, why is he a good example? Because he didn't have to fight wars to do this. He had to just be himself. He had to just be himself, and the people came to him. Now goes question 19. On the other hand, he is not the ultimate model of Shalom. Why not? What's the answer? Because when he passed away, he went back to the previous situation.
So the thing is like relative.
Correct.
In the grammar scheme of things, I know it's like the same thing of meaning and then not actually a last.
Precisely. So although in comparison to David HaMelech, we call Shlomo HaMelech Pada B'Shalom, but the fact that the Shalom does not last forever is a raya that there's something deficient in the Shalom itself. Okay, question 20. When will there be the ultimate model? The answer is after Mashiach comes, and specifically the second kufa after Mashiach comes. The Rebbe says there's two periods in Yemei Mashiach, and the real Pada B'Shalom is in the second kufa of Yemei Mashiach. And the question is why? Yeah? What makes it the ultimate model? And the answer basically is because it's forever. Because it's forever. It's forever. It's forever. I want to learn the Maimon with you, but before I learn the Maimon, I want to tell you something, okay? Now, I'm going to put this on the question sheets, but it's outside of the Maimon, so if you don't get this part, it's not the end of the world. But to me, this is very interesting and important, and of course, it's based on Chassidus, which is based on Kabbalah, okay? I told you, and I stand by what I told you, and I remembered it because you reminded me on Thursday last, that the concept of Pada B'Shalom requires a higher light. Remember that?
Yeah.
To have Shalom, but you have to have a higher light. So in Chassidus, they speak about levels of light. And in Kabbalah, the fancy languages, there's 7 aliyahs of Malchus. Malchus ascends up 7 times. The idea that I'm about to share with you is only the 7th aliyah. There's been the 6th aliyah. According to Kabbalah, the 6th aliyah existed in times of Adam Arisha before the Chet, and existed in times of Shlomo HaMelech, but they never reached the 7th aliyah. The 7th aliyah is going to be after Moshiach comes. And here's the point. When you shine light into the darkness, you push the darkness away. The darkness is still there, but the light is stronger than it. And the different aliyahs have to do with how high a light you shine. See, even if you shine the highest light, which is the 6th aliyah, which completely pushes away the darkness still is there, but the light is stronger than it. And so long as there's darkness, even if the light pushes away so completely, it's possible that tomorrow, if the light goes away, the darkness should come back. But then there is something called Aliyah Shvias, the 7th ascent, 7th Aliyah, which happens after Mashiach comes. The Eibush shines such a high light that the darkness itself begins to shine. Not that the oid is b'mokam ha'chayshach, not the light is in the place of the darkness begins to shine. When the Eibush creates shalom, by shining light into darkness, it can always change. When the Eibush creates shalom, by the light transforming the darkness into light, that shalom is forever. That's the difference between the time of Shlomo Melech, between Adam and Ish before the original Aveda, and after Mashiach comes in the Tkufa Shniya. The difference is, as long as the light is pushing the darkness away, the darkness still exists, so it's not B'Shleimus of Shalom. When the light makes the darkness shine, that light will be forever. And that's the Chiddush of Yemei Mashiach of the times of Shlomo Melech. Did you understand? Go ahead, talk loud.
Is that the mazikim not being mazikim, or that the mazikim disappear? That's the mazikim being good.
Mazikim being good. In the back?
Yeah, this is like backtracking a little bit, but if we define peace as like.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? I want to interrupt you for 1 second. This is our third class of the year. I want to thank you all for showing up. And I don't mean that you showed up with your bodies. I feel like you're listening to me. And you have no idea what it means to a teacher to talk to a room of girls. I'm sure one of you or two of you maybe dozed off. You're with me, and it's so rewarding. And I just want to say thank you. Go ahead.
When we define peace as not as ceasefire, but as defeat, and then you can have real peace. But Shlomo didn't do that. That was David. David did the defeat. So
But Shlomo's charisma kept it. In the times of Shlomo, it wasn't just that they weren't fighting. They sent him tribute. They would send him gifts as signs of friendship. Shlomo HaMelech's personality beckoned people to be underneath his authority. According to the Gemara, Shlomo was Moshe B'Kippur. He ruled over the whole world without firing a shot, without occupying any countries, occupiers. Just his charisma. It's gewaldig.
So what do we learn from that?
In Avodas Hashem,
Yeah.
that you should be a tzaddik. Now, what if you're not? What if you? So you be Nebuch David HaMelech. It's not so bad. we're a Halba David. The Maimon is speaking about a very idea like when my Maimonim speak Torah, they speak the truth. Now, how do we fit into that truth? That's a whole other story. Go ahead.
When you say that when Moshiach comes, the darkness will shine, what's the Metzias anymore? Is it darkness or is it light?
Okay, the philosophy of that, you're asking a good question. I don't want to answer it now. Because as it is, I added it to the Maimon. It doesn't say.
But it's a question in general in the Maimer, when we get...
It's a question on the idea of Achei Temimim. It's not in our Maimon. It's brought in Ayin Beis. And the Rebbe repeats it many times. The darkness itself lights, shines. You have to learn the Sikha of Yitzias Liv Tovshin and Beis, where the Rebbe asked the question, if the first half of the month is better than the second half of the month, how come Yitzias Liv is in the second half of the month? And the answer gives, there's two kinds of light. The light that dispels darkness, and the darkness itself shines. Now you learn that Sikha, you can have the same question, but you can blame it on another teacher, because I'm not teaching you that Sikha. you know the Sikhas in Beis? There's Oir and there's Avi. The Rebbe spoke about the idea of the darkness. It's deeper than light. Questions or comments? So let's learn. Okay, let's learn how much time we got. We got 24 minutes, which is quite a lot for us. I'm starting from V'tachas HaShleimus, okay? In your text, it's 6 lines down. We did a little bit of this, but I'm starting from there. You with me? Please look inside. Does anybody need a copy of the Maimon? I got one more left, I think. Please, come and get it. You're supposed to bring these every day. I'm going to have her make some more copies, but try not to lose yours. Okay. I'm reading it inside. You with me, Kinderlach? Sagt der Rebbe, v'tachlis hashleimus shebezeh. Tachlis means what? The purpose, the end, the end. I guess ultimate is accurate. Tachlis, the ultimate wholeness in this, Yihiyah b'yameisa Mashiach, is going to be only after the times of Mashiach. Sha'az, because in the times of Mashiach, Yizbatel hara legamri, evil is dispelled, is bittled completely. Kameshikosmi means an eye from the pasuk. Ves ruach hatuma a'avir min ha'aretz. Hashem says, I am going to get rid of the tumah in the world. You know how Birurim works? You have a spark, a mix of good and evil, yeah? You separate the good from the evil. The good goes up. What happens to the evil? It falls. It doesn't disappear. You know why it doesn't disappear? Because there's a smaller spark in that piece of junk. So the next generation comes along, separates the good from the evil, the good goes to the Eibush, opens to the bad. It falls. It doesn't disappear. You know why? Because there's even a smaller piece of spark. And the third generation comes along, they separate the good from the evil, the good, the Eibush, the bad falls. It doesn't disappear. Why? When does it finish? It never does. Until he finishes it. That's the pshat in this pasuk. The Eibusha says, no matter how small a spark you're dealing with, there's always a spark in the leftover junk for somebody lower than you to be mavated. It could go on ad infinitum. In other words, as tiny a clip as it is, there's still a nitzah laki. So Hashem says, I'm going to finish the game by removing the tumah completely. And when the Eibusha removes the tumah completely, then you have shalom, which is sustained. Let's read it. Shalachein, which is why it'll be us after Moshiach comes. V'noharu elav kol hagoyim v'gerim. The word noharu is the shadish of the word nohar, which means a river. Rivers move quickly in a downward direction. They're going to run. They're going to flow to the Beis Hamikdash in droves. V'noharu, they're going to run, and he adds the word me'atzma. They're not going to be made to come. They're going to come on their own. And the Rebbe adds even more. That after Mashiach comes, and the Eibishter rids Klippa completely in the kind of way that the Klippa is never coming back. Even animals. After Mashiach comes, animals stop being evil. By the way, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to become kosher. It just means that they're not going to be evil.
Why are they evil now?
Because the Eibishter said they are. Because they come from Sholosh Klippos at Meis Lagamre. Layareyu v'layashchisu v'geimer. After Mashiach comes, the predatory animals, animals that kill to eat, are not going to do any evil and they're not going to do any destruction. Then a lion, just like a cow, is going to eat hay. What makes a cow able to eat hay and what makes a lion eat meat? So you blame it on the teeth, you blame it on the testosterone, you blame it on the aggressiveness, right? There's a very simple answer to that question. Cows have 4 stomachs. So they can eat terribly poor food and get enough nourishment out of it. The easiest food to get nourishment out of is fresh meat. Because it's very fresh, it's easier to digest. Predatory animals have poorer stomachs. And therefore they have to eat food that's easier to digest. Bovids, that means kosher animals, with the mold with the maligata. Each time the cow brings up his food and he chews it again, it doesn't go back to the same stomach, it goes to a different stomach. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. They're able to get nourishment out of dead grass that's so dry it could burn. So that means if the lion is going to eat meat, the lion's going to have a more complicated stomach. How the Eibush is going to pull that off is a bezun de kashe. But the Lasud Lavi, it says that lions are not going to eat meat, they're going to eat hay. Because the Eibush is going to remove the Ra from the world. So, Goyim lahavdl are going to run to the Beis Hamikdash. Animals' nature is going to change. They're going to stop killing. They're going to become placid. They're going to become gentle. So the pnimius, the reason is because Hashem is going to remove the klipa from the world.
So then a pig will have split hooves and chew its cud.
The pig specifically is going to become kosher, which means it's going to develop. Pigs have split hooves,
Right.
but they don't have complex stomachs, which is why they have to eat more food than cows. And elephants is the same thing. Elephants, hippopotami, they don't have complex stomachs, so they eat much more food than they need, because they give up much waste, because they can't digest it properly. The kosher animals can eat less of a worse quality food and have sufficient nourishment because of their stomachs. So the chazir is going to become kosher. The other ones, not as far as I know, just the chazir. Let's continue. V'ulai yesh loymar. Perhaps we can say, come on, look inside. That, hello, I need your attention, that the mittel rebbe doesn't suffice with bringing the pasuk about people being good, but insists on bringing the pasuk about animals being good. That people being good doesn't have to change the nature of people. It just has to actualize the nature of people. But for predatory animals to stop being predators and to become placid, to become sweet, it's hipchateva. The Mittel Rebbe Dafke brings not just the pasuk by people, but he brings the pasuk by animals of Aryeh Kabaka Yechol Tevin. Why does the Mittel Rebbe bring it? Moving, it's implicit. The Biyamois HaMashiach Gufa in the period of Mashiach itself. Hashleim is the pod, the Bishalom, the wholeness of being redeemed in peace. Tihiyeh Bitkufa Shniya Dafka happens in the second era, when in the second era not only is there goodness in the world, but there's even goodness amongst animals. In the first kufa there's goodness amongst people, because for people to be good is not a change of nature. Even goyim lahav, it's actualizing their nature. For animals to stop being predatory, that's a nes, and that's going to be in the second period, to prove that the true concept of shalom, girls, not only is shalom not possible in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, shalom is not possible even in the times of Moshiach in the first kufa, until you reach a stage when evil is transformed to good. To good. It's explained by Makamacher is look at the Sichos in footnote 11. Tiv to reconcile the contradictions of the deis in the Rambam and the Raiva that you all know. The Pirush, when it says in the pasuk of God, the Eiv im Keves v'Gemer, that the wolf will lie next to the goat, the sheep, and not going to eat it up. So there's different ways of explaining that possibility, and one of them is Shebetku for the Sheredi Mesa Mashiach. In the first, according to the Rambam at least, in the first period of the times of Mashiach, the idea that animals are going to become good is not actual; it's only a marshal for the Rishi U'Mitzayim, for Goyim. In the first period, when it speaks about animals becoming nice, it's talking about goyim, and it's only a mashal. As opposed to the second period, Yezek Pshuta is going to be literal, regarding animals as well. And that shows that you're not just pushing away the darkness with light, you're transforming the darkness with light. So Shlomo HaMelech is Pada B'Shalom for a temporary. Mashiach's first kuf is Pada B'Shalom for people. The true Pada B'Shalom is what affects animals as well. Questions or comments? Go ahead, talk loud.
The Sikha that are referenced in footnote 11, is that the one where the Rebbe introduces the idea of Shtei Tekufos?
See, my problem is, he's been signed to Chelik Tezvav. And I didn't have a chance to look at it. It's in Chelik Ches. The Sikha, but the two Tekufos is Chelik Ches Bolok. So I didn't look this up, so I can't answer you yes, but I think the answer is yes. Which is kind of weird, right? I should have looked up the Sikha. It's been bothering me. This Ha'ara 11 has been bothering me. I'm trying very hard to ignore him. I can't. Questions or comments?
Why are we using the comparison with Gaia and animals? Like, why are we comparing them?
We're separating them. For goyim to become good doesn't require a nes. For animals, for predatory animals, to stop predation, that's a nes. I have a funny question. Anybody here like animals? Anybody who like animals? Yeah? Why do they have to be animals that eat meat? Why, according to ecology, nature, do they have to be animals that eat meat? Food chain, population control. If all the animals eat grass, they're going to run out of grass. And then they're going to die from starvation. So when you have the wild animals culling the herds, so how is Abish going to pull it off after Mashiach comes? If everyone's eating grass, they're going to run out of grass. Nicht azoi. I'm just letting you know that if you're looking for things to worry about, there's things to worry about. Don't worry. Even if Mashiach comes, the daigas. The answer is going to be we'll eat meat. We're going to be the only predators. We're going to make shechita, so there's going to be elevation, so it's not going to be predation, right? Doesn't work. There's got to be another answer. Carbonis.
Why don't we just make one grass?
Because the globus is finite. That's a good answer.
If you have to change something, then that's not thorough shleimos. It's not thorough peace. It just kind of seems like you're pushing away the darkness that fit into it. If you have to change it, then how thorough is it? So the idea that animals' nature have to change in order to be able to how shalom, then it's not
Okay, so what you're saying is that the nature of the world as it exists now doesn't allow for shalom b'tachas hashleimus. And I think it's true. It's true. So you know the story with the Hanukkah candles? No? The oil was supposed to burn for a day and it burned for 8 days, right? What's the problem?
It's not natural.
That's not natural. So what's the solution? It was natural oil and it didn't burn up at the same time. Nimna noise, right? So that's what's going to happen to the animals. Same idea. You ask funny questions, you get funny answers. Okay, Pedic base, turn the page. No, it's not going to change, even though it's going to change completely. Don't worry about it. Okay, Pedic base, let's go. It's a good question. The question you asked is a very legitimate question. I just don't know the answer. Okay, Kinderlach, let's go, please. Ubir ha'inyan. So the Rebbe starts Pedic base by saying, I want to explain this. But what does he want to explain? What does he want to explain? He wants to explain what you wrote in question 12. Okay? Look inside. The hagam she'inyin apdiya b'shalom hoya gam b'yimei shloimeh. It is true that even Shlomo HaMelech achieved a degree of pada b'shalom. Mekomokim still. Tachlis hashleimus shabazeh yihya b'yamei Moshiach. You're not going to have shleimus of shalom till Moshiach comes. But then he adds a third thing. Obazeh gufa b'tkufa beis. Those are three different shaloms. Shlomo HaMelech is shalom, not good enough. Moshiach is shalom, legabe people, weiter not good enough. Tachlis hashleimus of shalom is only when it affects animals as well. Says the Rebbe, why not? What's wrong with the shalom of Shlomo HaMelech? What's wrong with the shalom of the first kufa of Yemei Moshiach? That the only time you could say that peace has been achieved in a way that's truly peaceful, which means the enemy becomes your friend because the enemy as an enemy has been utterly destroyed, is only after animals' natures change. What is the explanation for that? That's the Rebbe's kasha. And he says, Yuvan, to answer to this question, you can explain it. Mizeh shemavayer b'hamaymer, by the spiritual parallel of this in the Maimer. In other words, girls, when you learn Pedic Aleph, the opposite of shalom is milchama. And milchama means killing. Right? In Pedic Aleph in the Maimer, the whole thing is explained in very practical terms. There's a fight. One side wins and one side loses. So did the winner achieve pada b'shalom or not? And the answer to that question is, does the enemy want to fight anymore or not? Right? Now what about the children of the enemy and the grandchildren of the enemy? And you come away with this idea that you can't have real shalom until after Mashiach comes in the second kufa. But so far we explained it in terms of war. So the Rebbe says to explain this, we have to explain ruchnius, right? What is shalom in ruchnius? Does anybody happen to know? Shalom in ruchnius is Torah. What's the opposite of Torah? Avedis. What's the opposite of Torah? Avoida. The opposite of Torah is davening. What does the Zohar say about davening? Anybody home? Shas, Tzloisa, Shas, Krova. The Zohar says davening is a mulchama. So at the meantime, we're juxtaposing davening against learning. To explain everything we said so far, which is a description of war in practical terms, in physical terms. It is not shalom till the second kuf in Yemei Mashiach. The Rebbe says, let's go to philosophy. Let's talk about the juxtaposition, the comparing and the contrasting of Torah with Tefillah. Read it inside. The Hagam, the Gam ayede Eisek HaTorah, all through the study of Torah. Parenthesis, what's the next word? Achshav, now. Now here the Rebbe is saying that when it comes to Ruchnius, maybe you can have peace now as well. Nasa Pediya B'Shalom, you have a redemption. And the redemption is in a peaceful way. Ki Habir or Shahidei Eisek HaTorah, when one creates clarity through learning Torah, it's bit al hara b'yetzem. When you mevatel ra through limud Torah, the ra is removed. B'etzem. B'etzem is translated in English in its essence, but I don't like that translation because I don't think essence is helpful. Hara b'etzem means the ra as it is by itself. Not just what it's doing to you, what it is. You completely rid the Ra through Torah. As my mother explained, the difference between Torah and Tefillah and davening, learning Torah and davening. Shabir or the Tefillah, when a person makes the correction of the world through davening, it's bederech Machon, it's a war, like it says in the Zohar. Shas, Shloisa, Shas, Krava. Shloisa means to pray. Shas means hour. Krava means war. Shas, Shloisa, the time of prayer, is Shas. Krava is a time for war. Now, girls, okay, look in footnote 18. Where does it say in Zohar, Shas, Shloisa, Shas, Krava? Look at footnote 18 carefully. It doesn't say doesn't say in Zohar, it says in Likutei Torah. You should know a rule, okay? When the Rebbeim quote a Zohar or a Gemara or a Pasuk and it's precise, they'll just bring the page. If the Rebbe quotes a Zohar and it says Zohar Chei Gimel Daf Kuf Beis Amarav, it's a precise quote. If it says Re'ei Zohar, it means it's an imprecise quote. In footnote 18, you see at the end of Re'ei Zohar Chei Kaf Reish Mamad Beis Chei Gimel, because this Zohar, as we have it, simply does not exist. I want you to know all the most famous quotes of Chassidus in the Zohar. Don't say in the Zohar. The Alter Rebbe created all those Zohars of the Alter Rebbe's. The Alter Rebbe had Zohar that nobody has. Now, he'll say, heard from the Moshiach Maggid or from the Baal Shem Tov, but there are approximate Zohars like this, not precise approximate. And the Rebbe is so careful to point it out. So footnote 18, it doesn't just quote a source. It says, Zohar hu b'Likutei Torah. The source of this Zohar is the Likutei Torah. And you look at the original, you're going to find it a quasi. But the Rebbeim are very honest. But all of these quotes from Zohar, which don't really exist, are the Alter Rebbe's.
Is it based on Zohar?
You have to understand. There are similar quotes in Zohar, but you also have to remember that we only have a part of the Zohar. We all agree that much of the Zohar was lost. The Alter Rebbe Beruach Kachim Mistamenu other Zohars. The first Zohar you encounter is in Pedig Beis of Tanya, right? Man de nafeh metechel nafach. No such Zohar. It's mamish upsetting. All the good, delicious quotes from the Zohar, there's the A Zohar. It's something like it. They're also not. Yep. Class, Kish's Gashran da beda. Yisrael's Gashran. So there's the A Zohar. There's approximately that in the Zohar, but the quote as the Alter Rebbe brings it precisely. All the good ones, trust me. The one that the Rebbe brings about the Tetzaveh, that one tzaddik does true if Moshiach comes, no such Zohar. Okay, can we get back to the text now that I distracted you? Anytime you have a quote from a Zohar and it says the A Zohar, it means that the Zohar is not exact.
But we assume that it comes from the Zohar that got lost.
We assume that the Alter Rebbe knew what he was doing and we trust him.
Okay.
Which is the same thing as that, sort of. But it's fascinating. All of these Zohars are the Alter Rebbe's. The Rebbe never made up a Zohar. The Alter Rebbe. The basic idea is there's always something similar to it, it's just not the precise quote. The clarity that happens in the world through Torah has to happen in a peaceful way. I'll see you next year.